Sitting Bull opens his eyes. Above him is a big, clear blue sky and the faces of his people looking down at him. He's hurt, very tired, and in a lot of pain. He's lost a lot of blood and that's made him pass out. For 2 days, he's been performing the annual Sundance, trying to get guidance from the Great Spirit. He's just been made the leader of the Lakota people. Some white people have come to the sacred Black Hills looking for gold, even though it's against the rules. And the army is on its way. They want to kill any Lakota who don't want to live on a reservation. Sitting Bull has done some very hard things to show his people that he's willing to suffer for them. He's gone without food and water for days while dancing, and he's cut 100 pieces of skin from his arms. But when he lost consciousness, that's when he had the vision. He saw the army falling from the sky like grasshoppers. They were upside down, their hats flying off their heads as they fell into the Lakota camp. The vision means that the Lakota people will have a great victory, and it's going to happen very soon near a river called the Little Bighorn. If you want to see the next episode of this Sitting Bull series right away, just a week after watching this one, you can do that on Nebula. Find out how after the episode. Sitting Bull. His name brings up pictures of the Great Plains, of a famous battle, and a tough chief wearing a war bonnet. This is no surprise, because Sitting Bull was a big deal, a man who became famous in his own lifetime and was one of the most photographed men of his time. He was a famous figure who won a big battle at Little Bighorn, which shocked America and helped create an idea of what a Native American is like. He also refused to give up even when the government was trying to control him, and his bravery became a symbol for people fighting for their rights. The government even put his picture on a stamp after they killed him, but back then, that future seemed far away. Born in South Dakota or Montana, around 1831 or 1837, his dad was a chief of the Hunkpapa Lakota. 2 of his uncles were chiefs too, so he had a lot to live up to. His dad's name was Sitting Bull, and that's how he would become famous one day. But as a young man, he was known as Jumping Badger. Eventually, people started calling him Slow, because he thought carefully before doing anything. Jumping Badger didn't have to live with that nickname for long, though. He got many chances to prove himself as a brave warrior. The Lakota people were proud of their warrior culture, which valued bravery, being strong, being generous, and being wise. They spent most of their time fighting enemies, but not the kind of enemies you might think of. The Lakota people fought against other tribes and sometimes against the white people who were moving into their land. Later on, Jumping Badger would become famous for fighting against the United States Army. But that's a story for later. For now, let's focus on how he grew up and became the man he was meant to be. As a young man, Jumping Badger was still getting used to his nickname. He was trying to prove himself, and he got the chance to do just that when he went on raids with other Lakota warriors. They would ride out at dawn, armed with bows, spears, and guns, and head off to fight their enemies. Jumping Badger was eager to show that he was a true warrior, and he worked hard to prove it. Jumping Badger's early life shaped him into the man he would become. He learned to be brave, to be strong, and to be wise. He learned to think carefully before acting, and to consider all the options. And he learned that being a warrior wasn't just about fighting, it was about living with honor and respect. Years went by, and Jumping Badger grew into a respected leader among his people. He became known for his bravery, his strength, and his wisdom. And eventually, he earned the nickname that would stick with him for the rest of his life, Sitting Bull. It's worth noting that even though Jumping Badger was known for being slow, he was still a fierce warrior. He fought in many battles, and he was known for his bravery and his skill with a bow. He was a true Lakota warrior, and he lived by the code of the warrior, to be brave, to be strong, and to be wise. Jumping Badger's life was not without its challenges, though. He faced many dangers on the battlefield, and he lost many friends and family members in the fighting. But he never gave up, and he never lost his sense of purpose. In the end, Jumping Badger's careful nature and his bravery served him well. He became a respected leader among his people, and he earned the nickname that would be remembered for generations to come, Sitting Bull. Word count, 2,022 horsemen. Young Badger's early years were spent fighting the Lakota's traditional enemies, other Native Americans, especially the Crow tribe. In the first 2 decades of a Badger's life, the Lakota were in a strange place. A long time before, they were farmers who hunted and fished to have extra food. But then the Cheyenne gave them something that completely changed their lives. Horses brought by the Europeans. Now that they had horses, the Lakota could follow the huge buffalo herds. and the buffalo gave them almost everything they needed, from food to fur to the leather for their tents. They made the leather weatherproof by mixing a special liquid made from the buffalo's brain. Firearms, also brought over by the settlers, made it easier to hunt buffalo. When a young badger named Jumping Badger killed his first buffalo at the age of 10, he did it with a bow and arrow. But he was 14 when he got the name he would use from then on. In an attack on a group of Crow warriors, he managed to sneak up and touch an enemy in battle, then get away without getting hurt. This made the other warriors feel bad about themselves. It was one of the bravest things a Lakota warrior could do. So, when they got back to camp, his dad, who also did something great that day, said that he would be called Jumping Bull from now on. To his son, he gave an eagle feather and his old name of Buffalo Bull who sits down. This name showed both pride and that he wasn't afraid to stand his ground. Outsiders usually just called him Sitting Bull. It was a fitting name. Sitting Bull went on to become famous for being brave in war. He fought warriors from other groups using a shield made by his dad, and he was just as determined as his new name said he would be. Once, when challenging a big Crow leader to a one-on-one fight, that very shield actually saved his life by deflecting a bullet into his foot right before he won the fight against his rival hand-to-hand. Soon, he became a part of both the Kit Fox Warrior Society and the Midnight Strongheart Society, which are two of the most respected warrior groups in the Lakota community. And because of his fame, Lakota warriors would supposedly charge into battle while shouting, "I am Sitting Bull," as a way to scare their enemies. Before long, he was chosen to be the leader of the Hearts. His reputation as a medicine man also grew, because from a young age he had been having visions when Sitting Bull had a dream about rain, the skies would really open up. His predictions actually came true. During the annual Sundance, he was also one of the warriors who would cut themselves or even thread a cord through the muscle of their chests and hang from the central pole, a remarkable feat of endurance to bring good luck on his community. And over time, he took on more leadership roles. However, in the Lakota culture, it meant something different when someone was a leader. Warriors made their own decisions, both in times of war and in peace. To be a leader was to have enough respect or influence that others wanted to follow you, but they didn't have to. If a chief decided to go to war, but a group of people thought it was a bad idea, they were free to leave and join another village that wanted peace. But hard times were coming for the Lakota. They'd heard rumors about settlers moving into the southern plains and building railways across the country. They'd also heard about the buffalo being killed in huge numbers. These problems still seemed far away, though. The Lakota's nomadic lifestyle had helped them avoid some of the problems that epidemics brought. In fact, even though their numbers were smaller, the Lakota were one of the few tribes whose population grew during the 19th century. By the 1850s, however, these problems were right on their doorstep. More and more people from the east were moving to the west, and the US. Governments started to talk to the Lakota and other plains tribes. They wanted these tribes to sign agreements that would decide who owned which land. Some of these agreements, like the 1851 Fort Laramie Treaty, said that certain areas, such as the sacred Black Hills, should remain reserved for the Lakota. However, many of these agreements forced the tribes to stay in small areas of land, often called agencies, and limited their freedom. The government was particularly concerned that the tribes would give up their nomadic lifestyle, which involved following the buffalo herds. But these herds were already starting to decrease in number. The settlers could easily kill many buffalo at once using rifles, but they mostly only ate the tender part of the buffalo's tongue. They left the rest of the meat to rot. Sometimes, they even shot buffalo just for fun, and sometimes they even shot them from moving trains. The plains were covered in so many buffalo bones that train passengers often thought it was snow. These treaties promised the Lakota, Cheyenne, Crow, and other tribes that if they settled on the agencies, the government would give them food and medicine in return. With the buffalo population getting smaller, a part of the Lakota people thought that this agreement was the best option they had. Others thought they could stay at the agency during winter when it was most difficult to live as nomads, and then leave to follow the buffalo in the summer. They believed that making friends and trading with the government would give them more than fighting against it. However, Sitting Bull did not trust these promises or any agreement the government made. He decided to fight instead. He had to fight because the army was getting closer. The Badlands, Dakota Territory, August 9, 1864. Attack and run away. Attack and run away. Sitting Bull did not want this war, which his enemies called the Dakota War. Actually, It was another group of Lakota who had attacked and killed the white settlers. Even though 4,000 Bluecoats had arrived to take revenge, they ended up attacking Sitting Bull's village in Killdeer instead of his actual location. Sitting Bull led 4 different tribes of Lakota, which had never fought against the soldiers before. The Lakota charged the Bluecoat line on horseback, taking heavy losses from the artillery, but they were able to slow down the army's progress and allow the villagers to escape. Now, the Bluecoat commander was chasing them into the rugged Badlands, just as Sitting Bull had planned. As the enemy marched through the broken ground, the Lakota would attack them from behind, setting up ambushes with their bows and muskets. Although only a few Bluecoat soldiers were killed, by the time they finally reached Fort Union, they were exhausted and out of supplies. Declaring victory, they boarded riverboats and gave up on the expedition. The Dakota War was over, but it was only the beginning of a much bigger conflict. In just a year, the Bluecoats would come back, and Sitting Bull would be involved in another fight, when some tribes unhappy about broken promises and constant trouble from the government started a rebellion called Red Cloud's War. And you, my friend who loves history, can keep going with this story right now, because our second episode, called Sitting Bull, No Reservations, is already up and ready on Nebula, where we talk about Sitting Bull's decision not to sign unfair American treaties, the start of the Dakota War, and how the old chief performed a very brave act in battle that inspired many warriors to follow him to the Battle of the Little Bighorn. But that's not everything. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but Nebula's getting a lot of attention lately because more and more people are finding out about all the great shows we have on our streaming service that's run by creators. 1. Red Cloud's War was a key event in Sitting Bull's life, but before we dive into that, let's look back at what happened before. In the years leading up to the war, the U.S. government was trying to take control of the Great Plains, and Sitting Bull and his people were trying to resist. The government was forcing them to sign treaties that took away their land and their way of life. Sitting Bull knew that these treaties were not fair, but he also knew that the government was getting stronger and stronger. 2. The war was sparked by a series of events, including the discovery of gold in the Black Hills. This discovery brought a lot of attention to the region, and the government was eager to take control of the land. Sitting Bull and his people were not willing to give up their land without a fight, and they started a rebellion against the government. The war was a long and bloody one, with both sides suffering heavy losses. 3. Sitting Bull was a key figure in the war, and he played a crucial role in the rebellion. He was a skilled leader and a brave warrior, and he inspired many of his people to follow him into battle. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, Sitting Bull and his people were able to hold their own against the government forces. They were able to win some major battles, including the Battle of the Little Bighorn, which was a huge victory for the tribes. 4. The war was not just about land and resources, it was also about pride and dignity. Sitting Bull and his people were fighting to preserve their way of life and to protect their culture and traditions. They were fighting against an enemy that was trying to erase their identity and take away their rights. The war was a defining moment in Sitting Bull's life, and it would have a lasting impact on his people and the country as a whole. 5. In our next episode, we'll be looking at the aftermath of the war and how it affected Sitting Bull and his people. We'll also be exploring the events that led up to the Battle of the Little Bighorn and how Sitting Bull's bravery and leadership inspired his people to fight for their rights. So stay tuned, and let's keep going with the story of Sitting Bull, one of the most important and fascinating figures in American history. But that's not all. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but Nebula's kind of blowing up these days because more and more people are realizing just how many awesome shows we have on our creator-owned streaming service. We have more than 190 of your favorite creators on board, which means you'll never be short of something new to watch. For example, if you want to keep learning about Native American history, you could look at Knowing Better's extra-long video about Geronimo's life or Step Back's 1-hour documentary on the recovery of native lands. This content is all available without any ads because at Nebula, we believe you're paying for a service, not for us to show you ads. That's why you'll never see any commercial breaks in any of our videos. Here is the rewritten text. You also get to watch many episodes of Nebula's first series, such as Extra History, a full week before they are available on YouTube. Additionally, you get access to a constantly growing list of exclusive episodes that can only be found on Nebula, like the episode of Real Life Law's Modern Conflicts about the Yugoslav War, the show Archaeology Quest where a scientist and a journalist compete using survival skills from the Paleolithic era, and Lindsay Ellis' Ballad of John and Yoko. To be honest, Ballad of John and Yoko is the most interesting thing I've watched this month, You should definitely check it out. But if you don't have access to Nebula yet, don't worry. You can sign up now by using the link in the description or going to nebula.tv and searching for Extra History. When you sign up for an annual plan, you can get Nebula for only $2.50 a month. Or if you want to make sure you have access to Nebula forever without having to pay any more, we are currently offering lifetime memberships for $300. So what are you waiting for? You can sign up for Nebula here or check out more extra episodes on YouTube by clicking here. That version probably has ads, though. We would like to thank Ahmed Zia Turk, Angelo Valenciana, Arcolite Games, Dominic Valenciana, Izzy Coyne, Joseph Blame, Kuyako, and Michael Hoggett for their continued support. They are the reason we are able to keep doing what we love. 1.